Today's High Performance Podcast is brought to you by Josh Phegan Digital. It's where you'll find our revolutionary blueprint course. There's only one place that you can go from zero to hero over a weekend by watching the incredible blueprint. It's everything you'll need to be that $1 million agent. Prospecting, listing, negotiation, and growth. Broken up into short 15-minute pieces, skip to the content you need now or watch from the beginning to end. Only on Josh Phegan Digital. Welcome to High Performance, the podcast featuring Josh Phegan and Alexander Phillips. Alexander, today we're going to talk about living what we go to call the age of chaos. And what you're hearing a lot is that there's a lot of real estate agents that are all of a sudden finding, hey, there's all of these 4-day work weeks with what's coming up with Easter, Good Friday, Easter Monday, Anzac Day, then heading into the election here in Australia. How do you deal during the course of that chaos period? Because you've got to be in a position, you've got to get buyers to buy and sellers to sell. And are you in a position that when you say, you know what, on the day of the federal election, the 3rd of May, we actually want that to be the biggest ever day for PPD open for inspections because everyone's going to be out and about. So let's make sure we've got flags and pointer boards and we're trying to drive as much buy momentum. It's about like telling yourself a different narrative as opposed to saying, hey, we're just going to wait or I'm just going to get wobbly through that period and not do the transactions that I should do.
Yeah, Josh, I think, these periods of chaos actually is, a way of I think actually ploughing through that
but ploughing through it and really making that decision to go there, right? So if you think about the short weeks, how important is it to list prior, to have plenty of listings to either trade through or directly after?
We've got the 3rd of May for us is going to be one of our biggest open days. We're launching all our post-Easter campaigns then. So we know that everyone's going to be on the ground looking, be fresh buyers after Easter holidays, a new energy. Hopefully that's a start of a new marketplace with a new government in place. So it's definitely a way of you sort of being at the forefront and ahead of everybody else. These periods of chaos, I find a lot of people, particularly agents, stop doing, what they should be doing. That's a period when you ramp up the intensity and you've got more visibility in the marketplace of social proof of what you're doing, which is just going to then flow more business your way.
So, Alex, there's a lot of agents that are unaware, but if you start to think about it, we're seeing headlines about the Reserve Bank of Australia potentially having 3 interest rate decreases before the end of the year. Only a week ago in the AFR, they were talking about potentially 2 more interest rate increases by the end of the year because of the inflationary nature and therefore potentially even the deflationary nature of what's going to go on with all of the tariffs. How important is it for agents just to realise that you can't predict that September is going to be better and that you can only deal in the market that you've actually got today to make the very best decisions for both your owners and your buyers?
Yeah, I think no one really has the crystal ball anymore of what's going to happen. But, when you look at the tariffs, now they're talking about interest rate cuts. Everything changes really quickly, so you've got to be ahead of that. And I think the main thing is convincing the vendor to be selling now, and they're going to be buying the same market anyway. We've definitely seen almost a 10% shift downwards across prices, pretty much across all price ranges, say above 3 million. And a lot of those vendors really aren't aware of what's sort of happened out there, and we tell them go out looking and look at what you can buy because that shift is also where you're going to buy next.
So, the interesting thing, they're saying that if China can't export to the USA, they drop all of those goods back into the Australian marketplace. That drops the prices of goods and services, but most importantly, it destroys the manufacturing sector in Australia, which then causes significant underemployment. And if there's underemployment, then we've got a significant issue because all of a sudden we've got to try to get the economy kicking again. And all of a sudden that's then potentially going to mean that house prices actually come back for a bit because there's a lack of confidence before it actually surges again. So this whole idea is that things will be better in spring, September will be amazing. You just can't actually predict that it's actually going to be like that. And instead, you've got to actually work out where are the points in the year where you're going to push through for volume. And what I've seen a lot of agents all of a sudden do is that they don't predict ahead. And they go, I'm going to be walking into a listing lounge room and sellers are going to be saying to me, should I be on the market over the Easter period? Should I have a conversation around when do I launch? Do I do May 3 or not? And what actually happened after ScoMo got in, if you remember, the next weekend it was like there was an extra 7 buyers at every open for inspection because sentiment had shifted. Now, regardless if there's a change in government or not, we're not political here, but the foundational idea is that after that period of uncertainty, people lock in because they know what they're doing for the next 3 years with whatever happens government-wise. Is it important for agents to actually have a narrative to say, hey, you have to be really clear how you trade through those periods because else it's going to literally take you sideways on the numbers that you write?
Yeah, 100%. That's why I asked you last podcast what actually happens through the elections. You had that conversation with domain.com and interest rates, clearance rates spike during those periods because there's a lack of stock but still the same pool of buyers. So I've been using that dialogue out in the marketplace and we've actually put on 4 listings this week that we brought forward about a month.
And which is really the skill set, right? Find some data, have a great conversation and actually lead to getting more listings today for whenever you're going to launch them.